Okay, good morning. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hubbard County County Board meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We start off with agenda approval.
We need to add an item for environmental services to discuss shoreland ordinance impact.
And we can do that right after administrator. All right. Anything else? If not, entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Just a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. And we have public input. Anyone for public input? There being none, we'll close public input. And next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there any item that's one of you would like to see polled or discussed? Nope. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
you have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. And now we move on to employee recognition. And let's see, in the Highway Department, we have Ethan Anstein, Engineering Technician 3, recognized for 10 years of service on June 3rd, 2023. We have Jack Jackson, Engineer Worker, began seasonal position on May 22nd. And in the Natural Resources, Parks and Recreation, we have Corey Kimball. He's our new Land Commissioner, began full-time position May 22nd, 2023. Yep, welcome on board.
Thanks.
Yep. And in the Sheriff Department, we have Dwayne Corfey, Jail Sergeant, is recognized for 15 years of service on May 18th. Gene Tretbar, Administrative Assistant, is recognized for 15 years of service on May 19th. And Nancy Estrada, Dispatcher Jailer, began full-time position on May 31st. And in Social Services, we have Sarah Brown, Eligibility Worker, is recognized for 25 years of service on June 1st, 2023. Congratulations. And that's it for employee recognition. And now, Jed with Highway Department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Quick one for you today, one item on our agenda, and then Jeff can give you a project update, but we've got review and approve quotes for our culvert inventory. We do this every year, put it out for quotes to the companies that we know provide this stuff. We received 2 quotes this year with the Lobe and True North Steel out of Fargo, North Dakota, $25,834.60. And we budgeted, I think, $30,000 for this year, so it's more of a discrepancy than we've seen in the past, but yeah, we're comfortable with True North Steel.
Okay,
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you.
Already?
Quick update, if you're,
Oh, yeah.
that'll
go
work.
ahead.
A gravel surfacing contractor, Volk Sturge Surface, began work Tuesday, May 30th. They completed our County Road 91 last week, and they're currently working up in the northwest corner of the county. And calcium chloride work began with Envirotech Services. They completed work last week, starting again on the 30th of May, completing work for the City of Park Rapids, and they're currently working in the southwest corner of the county and slowly moving to the east as time progresses here. Our County Road 49 contractor, Gladen Construction, has moved up their schedule by a week, so they plan to start the week of June 19th in Akeley on Grayson Avenue. And Knife River Materials has completed all their paving for us on County Road 119, County Road 82, and then for the townships on 174th and Albert Avenue for Todd Township here locally. They anticipate tomorrow actually, their shouldering crew will be in and they'll begin shouldering on all of that entire project that calls for shouldering. So we look for that to be completed in the next week or so, hopefully. And we've got a bid opening for our County Road 7 project from Trunk Highway 226 going north, scheduled for July 11th. And hopefully we can get some good bids in for that and complete that work late summer, early fall. So that's pretty much it. Anything else, Jed?
We got the Akeley Trailhead project over there too, that we'll probably open bids on that same date, July 11th. That's a little federal job over for the city. And we finally got approval to move forward on that, so I think that should, we'll wrap up. County 9 west of Besida is scheduled to start middle of July with Hawkinson Construction.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
This is not related to Hubbard County, but it will affect Hubbard County residents. Can you give me an update on 34? They delayed construction start until June 15th. Are they gonna start with the bridge? Do you know?
On which project is
On
this?
34? On
34?
Highway 34? Have you kept up with that at all?
A little bit, I guess. Is there, I'm not aware of a bridge, I guess. They have some culverts that they're gonna
Yeah, okay,
replace where they
yeah.
would be closed. I'm guessing that's what it is. Yeah, the last I had heard is that they will shut down portions of that road for those culvert replacements. They'll do that first. And I think the detour actually is going, it actually, I think, went on Monday. And they're gonna come back later then and reclaim and pave the road. That was the last I had heard about it.
Are they
so
closing down the whole 21 miles at one time? Do you know?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That's what the signs appear to show.
I know.
Laying in the ditch, yeah.
It's just a really a pain.
Yeah, I think with the way that the detour has to be set up on that, MnDOT can't use just any road for a
Yeah.
detour. They have to have the good paved roads, and so it's gonna go down to 87, go ahead over towards Frazee, and then
Yeah.
come back up. And so, there's not a real good other way to do that in sections. I'm sure that the locals will find different ways around, but,
Thank you.
yeah.
I have one question. You familiar with that parking lot near the Heartland Trail that the county owns for parking on that?
Oh, yeah, right up there in number 4?
On
Yeah.
the newer trailhead up there,
Yeah.
just on the Townships Road there?
Okay, was that one of the township roads that's gonna be repaved?
It is, yep.
And when is that gonna be done?
We are expecting that towards the end of this month for the contractor,
okay.
yeah, Northern Paving to get started on that.
And I was just talking with Russ Johnsrud, and he'd like to see that parking lot expanded a little bit. It would help in turning around a lot better.
Yeah.
I just wonder if that would be a good time to do it if we were to do it.
You know, we've had a little bit of talk in the office about that, wondering if the size of that parking lot is adequate, and then, if you wanted a paved surface on that as well. I guess we were looking for direction to maybe come from the Parks Board through the commissioners, on that. We don't have any direction any further than that. I think now would be a great time to maybe talk to the contractor about a potential change order on that, if there's funding available. I have no idea.
I was surprised that parking lot was as small as it was. I thought it would go all the way out to County Road 4.
And people have been parking still along 4, so I was
Yeah.
assuming the parking lot
Can't
is
see it.
full, or they can't see it, they're not
They're
aware of the sign.
Not aware of it, the signing
Yeah.
is not great on it, so I think you could make some improvements there with
Yeah.
the size of it and the education of it being there.
Get all the way out to the right of way. So
Yeah,
it's,
so
you
people
can
can
see
see
it
it.
from the road,
Yep.
and it's big enough,
Yeah.
and then eventually pave it.
When do you have your Parks Board meeting?
End of this month. I know Russ is in favor of doing that. So, I said, well, you need to just get it on the Parks Board agenda, but yeah, if you need something sooner than that.
Well, I think we can talk to the contractor. There's nothing wrong with opening that line of communication up and seeing if they're even interested and at what price. That would be better information for the Parks Board to actually take some action on. If the contractor comes back and says, nope, our schedule just doesn't allow it, sorry, it's outside the scope of this project, well, then we know where we're at.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, if
Take
you can do
much
that,
to
that'd be
clear it
great.
and prep it.
No. it
no.
wouldn't.
that would be different funding, of course.
It would be different funding.
That
Yep.
is related to the contract. And I know at one time, Chip had mentioned to me about that parking lot being expanded, because Russ had one time mentioned it to me too, and he said there was something, apparently on one end or the other, there's an open well, or
Correct.
uncapped well, that he tried to get quotes to cap and seal, but he wasn't having any luck, so I don't know all the history on that, but I know that was one minor restriction anyway, so.
Yeah, and then when they go in, they gotta back out into the road.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
It's not great timing as far as trying to fit it in, but it's good timing as far as there being a contractor in the area, so.
Okay. All right,
Good
well,
idea, Tom.
huh?
Good idea.
Okay. Well, I was, happened to run into Russ at L&M yesterday, that's how it came up. Okay. Well, if you-
Okay, we'll
Talk with the
work on our
contractor.
end and see what kind of options we've got.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Josh with solid waste.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so I have a couple items for you this morning. So the first item I have is to review and approve a proposal for professional services for partial final closure at the South Demolition Landfill. Some background on this, Stantec, who's our consulting firm, has prepared a proposal to Hubbard County Solid Waste for engineering, design, and construction administrative services for the partial final closure of our South Landfill in Park Rapids. The final closure work will include areas of the landfill that are at or near final grade, in which are anticipated to be ready to receive cover this fall. So we have roughly, are anticipating 5.25 acres of landfill that we'll be able to cover. This project, this proposal from Stantec, the project would include 3 different tasks, which would be helping to prepare the construction drawings, the bid documents, selecting the contractor, and doing the contract administration and construction field services. The final cover that we'd be looking at would include several different layers of soil, as well as a 40 mil LLDPE liner material over the top of the landfill. The schedule, which I included in the packet, once they would get notice to proceed, they would quickly put together the documents for bidding. We'd look at advertising in July and then doing a bid opening and award in August, with hopefully plan to be to have substantial completion in late November. We did budget $800,000 in 2023 to complete this cover project and a smaller cover project at the North Landfill. We are estimating that the total project cost should be at or below this total. And then the plan for this was that most of this funding would come out of general reserves and would be paid back by the solid waste fund over 3 to 4 years. And this project is required by our MPCA permit, going back to all the way back to 2019, and we're finally at a point where I think we have at a point where we can do this partial final closure project, so.
And then Josh, all of the demo stuff would then be trucked to the North Station, correct?
So this is just looking at closing 5 acres of the current landfill that's already up to grade.
Okay,
We still have probably 5 or 6 acres that we'll be filling in for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So it'd just be closing a portion of it, like a quarter to about a third of it, and then we'd still be filling the rest of it to bring it up to final grade
Okay,
and doing a
thank you.
further closure at a later date. So.
I'm kind of curious, what can be done with that land once it's closed? I mean, can, like, trees be growing on it or something like that?
So there's once with the final closure, you have to, get it vegetated, and then you have to pretty much keep it grass. You can't have trees established in there just so they don't end up rooting down and destroying any layer or any of the cover. So you pretty much have to keep it tree-free and keep it vegetated, and you have to mow it, have a mowing plan, so.
Only grass for a long, long, long time.
At least typically landfills will have a 20-year post-closure period where you have to maintain, all that. Have to keep doing, and this is once we more so when we're finally closed there. We'll have to keep it maintained like that, and then maybe towards the end of that, a person could evaluate what you could do in the future. But just having grass is probably the best option just to protect that liner. So.
Just curious about it. Hate to see, all that land just sit there and can't do nothing with it. Okay. Any other questions? We're looking for
I'll move to approve.
okay. Got a second? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes.
All right, and then thank you for that, and in conjunction with this, the next item I have is to review and approve quotes for the 40 mil liner that we're going to be placing on for this project. We did have Stantec reach out and get quotes to get this material purchased and ordered in order to have it in time for the construction this fall. So we did reach out to qualified contractors. We received 3 quotes, with the low quote being from Scaps Industries of Commerce, Georgia for $70,314.60. Stantec did review all of the quotes that we'd received, went over warranty information, making sure the specs were the same for every quote that we received, and they did recommend going with the low quote. And again, this would be, the liner material would just be the material cost, and then the actual installation would be on the contractor that we'd select during the bidding process, So my recommendation would be to award this low quote from Scaps Industries for this material. And if you have any other questions, I can answer them, so.
Josh, I'm assuming shipping is included in this?
Yeah, this is the total cost, including shipping to the facility. And
So are they putting the liner on, or are you hiring someone else to do that?
so this would just be for the material, and whoever we select during the bidding process for the general contractor, they'd be in charge of the installation, so.
We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the low quote from Scaps.
We have a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's approved.
All right, thank you, that's all I had, so.
All right.
Anything else for me? All right, appreciate it.
Can you imagine what a 5-acre, 40 mil?
No, I was just wondering how they're gonna get that on there.
It's a
I'm
lot.
assuming cranes
Yeah.
on a non-windy day.
Not the tarp on a baseball field.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting process to see, that's for sure.
Okay,
So
human resources?
We did not get the materials for that item, so it's not we're gonna skip right down to number 8.
Okay.
It's my favorite number, too.
8?
Really? Why?
Random fact, I guess. So it looks like we're starting with, hey, it's good to see everybody, by the way, I should say hello.
Do you wanna do
I haven't
them
been
yet?
up here in a
You
couple
wanna
of weeks.
switch them?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. They work together to some extent, so I'll start with 8A. What I'm asking for is for the board to approve my office through the capital improvement, the courthouse renovation capital plan, to approve in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $350,000 for renovation. I'm hopeful that it will be on the bottom end of that, but I don't know enough to be able to, at this point, because I haven't received any quotes, to say that it's gonna be on the low end. It won't be less than 150, but I don't expect that it will be more than 350. Ultimately, the plan, and this is coming from the architect who did this building. Actually initially drafted 3 different options. This is one that we in my office changed a little bit. This is what we would suggest that we do moving forward. We would continue to work with the architect, hire a general contractor to do these renovations. Ultimately, the big change would be moving the law library to the the first part of the courthouse when you walk in, and splitting that up into a conference room and the law library, taking the law library and putting that into the county attorney's office. That cost altogether, again, somewhere between $150,000 and $350,000. So my request to the board today is to approve me moving forward with that, as I need board authority to go forward on that amount of money.
So Jonathan, you can speak to this better than I can. I'm on the law library committee. We only meet once a year.
Sure.
But the current law library space is not really utilized, and it's larger than needed. So
Sure.
from the law library perspective, this move would be fine.
And we can obviously change it. Right now, the space would end up being about the same. It would just be in a different place.
Yep.
But we could change that space based off of the size of that conference room that we are going to utilize. Put another door in there and make the conference room bigger and the law library smaller to utilize what people really utilize. And you know that being on the law library, which is the computer.
Yep.
That is access to Westlaw and all of the court documents in the state of Minnesota and federally and nationally. So that's what people need, and it is utilized quite a bit, but it doesn't take a lot of space to do that. Yeah.
I'm assuming your ask is to have this in the capital plan for next year,
It is not, and the reason being,
this year?
well, I'll put it this way. Yeah, it is this year. I mean, there's 4 sergeants. This is a good way to explain it. There's 4 sergeants at the sheriff's department. That's one agency we work with. Those sergeants are tasked with both going out and enforcing the law, but they're tasked with overseeing all the other deputies. That's just one agency. I work with the state patrol, have all their cases. Park Rapids Police Department, we're statutorily obligated to do a lot of their cases. City of Akeley, City of Nevis, we're obligated to work with the DNR by statute as well, and all of the different county departments. But there are 4 sergeants, and I have 4 attorneys, including myself. That is not sufficient. I don't have anywhere to put anybody else. My entire office is full with 4 attorneys. And 4 support staff, if you count Jill, which I would say that she's kind of outside of the support staff, as she does a very specific job that's very, very important. So I need more people to do the job, what we're required to do. And I need sufficient workplace or workspace for those people in my office to where they can do it effectively. And right now, I can't even bring in a summer clerk. I've been asked by 3 or 4 different law students to come in. I don't have anywhere to put them.
So out of the $500,000 or $600,000 we had allocated for immediate capital needs for this year, is there any left?
No, the amount that we allocated for 23 is still committed, so. I completely understand what Jonathan is saying, and I completely leave it to the board to determine how to do this, but what I would propose is working with, there's a few other minor adjustments we want to do on the second floor too, just relative to some of the space. I'd really like to consider making this a little bit bigger, but moving forward with the planning for it. And again, we really don't know what the number is, and I wouldn't do that in a way that it would cause this to get pushed down the line. I'd do it in a way that would make sense to have the economy of scale and accomplish both at the same point in time. First thing is the goal is to put this project on the capital plan, which we'll be approving in 2 weeks. But the timing of when you want to put it on the capital plan is, of course, Jonathan suggesting sooner rather than later. And in this case, we really probably should have taken the second item first, but you know what it is. And that we get moving forward on this. Bobby and I need to be involved in this as far as the maintenance of the building, and we need to be doing that in support of Jonathan and his office. Bobby's been involved with working with the architect and the plans and the drawing and taking a look at it to this point, and I've been aware of that, but we need to get closer and better numbers and know a timeline and actually propose something. Right now, we're proposing blocking out some space on the capital plan because we know we have a need. But we haven't looked at any of the other alternatives, and I don't know if I know they have relative to the current space that they have right now, but I don't know that we've evaluated all the options within the space. So we would have to move it quickly, and then when we can put it on the construction plan is kind of up to you, and that's also based on our ability to give you a financial impact.
So, I mean, that's what I would recommend, is push it to the capital planning committee right away and see if that committee can figure out, how to get it in the plan for this year, because that's coming up for public hearing next month, right?
The capital plan, being the capital planning process, is up for public hearing next month. The five-year project plan is a part of that. And again, just a reminder that every project that's put on that 5-year plan still has to go through its own approval process, especially the ones that require issuance of debt to make the projects happen. This one probably wouldn't. If it's of the scale of, $300,000 to $400,000, it probably wouldn't require debt, but it would still qualify to have to go on the plan to be processed and planned for and done, so.
As one commissioner, I'm not opposed to, I understand your situation, and it needs to be addressed, but we need to find the money. And if the capital committee can find the money and figure out how to make this work early enough, it would not be a problem. It's just a priority then for next
Yes.
year.
Yep.
But to get it done this year, we gotta find some money, or be able to shift things around.
Well, and truth be told, by the time we would get
Yeah.
everything done, it would be next year. I mean, if we start right now, we wouldn't encumber anything other than architectural fees until we get to 2024. So that's moving lightning fast to develop a project, get going, do a bid, hire a contractor, and actually start work. It'd be very unlikely.
It's gonna be next year. One question, what is the new jail or the expansion, is that in this year's capital improvement? No? Is it next?
It's in the project plan, it's in the 5-year plan,
Okay.
but it's actually shown in 24, 25.
So that's not budgeted for yet?
No.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that's the whole rationale behind the project plan, and I know you know this, but and you can't avoid the situation you're in now, you need it now, is to avoid this kind of scenario coming up where all of a sudden the board's looking at a huge expense that was not budgeted for. Because it becomes an emergency then, and an immediate need instead of a planned thing. So
Yeah,
that's-
I mean,
that's-
it was a 15-year ago problem.
I know it was.
Jonathan, in
That's been said many times.
Yep.
the
Yes, it is.
legislature passed, reducing sentences. So will that impact at all the amount coming forward for prosecution, do you think?
We will see. I doubt it, for a number of different reasons. Obviously, the new Drug Reform Act coming through as far as what is legal and what is not will have impact as it relates to law enforcement, my office enforcement. Do I believe that the numbers will come down? No, I really don't. They haven't come down regardless of the law changes. There was a huge change in 2016 as it relates to a Drug Reform Act, and the numbers just continue to go up, and they are still going up. So, no, it's a question of enforcement it's a question of enforcement. Whatever's on the books will be enforced, and we have a number of individuals and agencies in Hubbard County, and throughout the state for that matter, that their whole job is to enforce. And the numbers won't come down because of that.
And I understand you needing extra staff. I'm not opposed to that. Is there any way that you can put the person, if we would approve the position, could you put the person in the conference room and keep it secure until this would move forward?
Yes, there's a couple of stopgap measures we can do. And frankly, knowing that this wouldn't really happen as far as having it in a place where people are in a good working environment, that's not happening until next year. Already understood. I mean, I want to move forward with working with the architect now, which is what I'm asking the board about, is to work with them, start lining up who the best general contractor would be, when are they going to be available. As we all know, general contractors are not available all the time, and maybe it will be best in the winter because we're indoors and they won't have to be out of doors. Maybe it won't. I don't know, but those are questions that I want to answer now when we're moving forward. But no, I have a couple of stopgap measures as it relates to the request number 8B, that will, in the meantime, give us a little bit of respite, or at least it'll be a little bit easier to deal with.
If this is brought to the capital planning committee, and I would think that they would want to see this number be narrowed down a little bit. Is there any way that can be done?
That's a number that is gonna be based off of what our quotes are from the general contractor, so I couldn't say.
Because there's, for myself, there's a couple of sacred cows that I don't want to see bumped to make room for this. One of them is the Deep Lake Park. I don't want to see any funds taken away from developing that. The other is the housing, money that we're going to be spending on housing. We desperately need housing here, too.
Do you need housing more than you need the enforcement of the law?
I think housing would if we had good housing and employment, maybe that'll bring down our need for more enforcement of the law.
Okay. I
Kinda work-
respectfully
and quality of
disagree,
life,
Commissioner.
too. And that's where the park would come in.
We've been in my office working at a capacity that is not sustainable for the last 5 years. And I appreciate that our taxpayer money has been going to other projects, including housing, and including other projects. But we're getting very close to a breaking point. As you all know, the sheriff's department has received multiple new positions. Those positions are creating, both through the sergeants and the deputies and the jail, they are creating a significant caseload for my office. And our caseload is important for a number of reasons, but it's because citizens in Hubbard County expect that when law enforcement sends a case to my office, that the victims of that case are going to get to a resolution that is at least understood and satisfactory. Right now, that is very difficult for my office to do. So as much as I respect housing and the Deep Lake project, my office is more important, point blank.
I kind of agree with Jonathan here a little bit. Of course, I've only been a commissioner a little over 4 years, but I remember reading in the paper years ago of the prior county attorney, same issue, trying to get more attorneys and stuff like that. So it's nothing new and maybe overdue.
Yeah.
If you read what will happen now with the legalization of marijuana, it's gonna have a great impact on our county, and it's also gonna have a great impact on law enforcement, which means it's gonna impact Jonathan's office.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that it will lower caseloads. I disagree with that argument. I think it will higher
If you
them.
look at the history of the states that have actually legalized it,
Yeah.
it doesn't support that.
Agreed.
So I don't think this is a matter of either or.
Yeah.
And it's not really even a matter of priorities, it's really a matter of process.
Yeah.
And I think that the first step in the process to continue moving this forward and to follow the process relative to capital planning is just to invite Jonathan to come to the general government meeting in 2 weeks and review that final 5-year plan before it goes to the public hearing the night of the 20th. And we can do some homework in between then and review on that. To Commissioner Kruger's question about narrowing that scope, right now, when you're doing bubble drawings like this, you can't narrow that scope. To narrow that scope, you actually have to engage the architect to develop the construction plans, and then they would come up in the same way that our highway department has some idea that this is a $6 to $8 million project, and then they go through the process of developing the project, and then they come up with an engineer's estimate, and then they bid, right? So at each one of those points, that number changes. We're at this point where We're just at a bubble drawing phase. They've kind of put their best guess on it. But until we determine which of the scenarios we want them to design, they couldn't put an engineer's estimate on it. And then after they do, then you would end up getting quotes on it. So
I
we,
could be supportive of that in the capital plan, that expenditure this year, to get that architect and get it rolling,
Thank you.
you know,
And
once.
that's
and
where
then-
I'm at.
And then the rest of it would be into the 24s.
and there's, and I'll add this as part of my report for later, but I'll add it right now. The money that we allocated for match for Deep Lake Park project for this year, we're probably not gonna be able to spend because, we've been informed by the state that we can't spend the match until we have a signed grant agreement for phase one. So we're putting the cart before the horse. If we spend money on Deep Lake Park at this point in time, we're just spending Hubbard County taxpayer money on Deep Lake Park, and then if and when we get the grant, then we would have to come up with additional match. And that's a conversation that we'll have to have, and you'll have to tell me how you want to prioritize that. But that means that there are dollars in 2023 allocated that we may not spend in 2023, or you may decide to tell us to go ahead and do some portion of that. But the grant application is due July 31st. We wouldn't execute until several months later if we get the grant on the first application. So it's not an either-or scenario. It's not really even a priority scenario. It's just organizing the money in a way to make things work. And the first step would be to back this up and put it on the agenda for the 20th for general government, and figure out what the timeline is for this and everything else that we want to include in that final 5-year plan before we bring it to the public that night.
That'll work. And in the meantime, going to AB, which is the reallocation of an open position that I have in my office. I currently have an office assistant position that is open. Has been open, hasn't been filled. I haven't requested that it be filled for a couple of months now, I believe. That position, I would be a better impact on the county if that position was reallocated to an assistant county attorney. The cost to the county on that is approximately $50,000 annually. The change that I'm requesting here, I think if Gina was here, she would say it's somewhere in that neighborhood, $55,000. But that's pretty accurate as it relates to salary and benefits that we offer as the county. Right now, our caseloads are causing significant strain on the attorneys. I've talked to both my assistant county attorneys as well as my support staff, and across the board, they all agree that an assistant county attorney would best serve both the county attorney's office, but ultimately, the county as a whole, in that we need an additional attorney to get some of these caseloads a little bit better prepared for court, so.
Jeff, if we approve this, where the 50,000, well, maybe about 30 since it's June, wouldn't get hired for a while, where'd the money come from for this year?
It would come from the budgeted funds for the attorney's office.
Yep.
And
It's
it
in my
might-
budget.
And it might create a
To
situation.
cover that?
It might create a situation where we overspend on salary and benefit in that department for.
That's something I went and looked up because for me, it's gotta pass that test. And I saw that, you're spending about 50,000 a month on salary, and, spread that out for a whole year, it's 600,000. You have 702,000 budgeted for salary, so there's money there.
I generally am somewhere I budget, and I usually come in under budget in the 85% range. Right now, because we've had open positions throughout the year, it will, even with what I'm requesting, it will still work within the budget and come in probably still under budget.
Yeah, at the pace you're going at 50,000 per month, you're gonna be, have $100,000 left over at the end of the year.
On my budget alone, yes.
Yep. So it had to pass that test with me, and I
That's
see it
because
here.
we haven't hired new people yet.
Yeah.
I know we're really trying to control the amount of FTEs we're increasing, but I don't know where we have much choice in this area. I mean, this is consequences of
And this is
things
not,
that have been put in place.
this is not adding an
years
FTE.
It is.
This is,
Just changing the position.
ago. Well, I have.
no, it's not adding an FTE. It's changing one position to an attorney, which is a more expensive position. even if Jonathan doesn't put it forward, I'm gonna put it forward that we would consider in the budget process, adding that staff position back in for 2024, because you can't support those attorneys without the appropriate staff. So we'll have to have that conversation. That'll go through the regular budgeting process. That's also dependent on what ends up happening with the facilities and where we have desks for people to work at. But for right now, what his ask is the vacant position he'd like to fill as an additional assistant county attorney at the additional expense, which.
Yeah, and just letting you know, but it will be in my budget, and it's not gonna end up affecting the levy in any way. It will be part of my budget, so, it really is just letting you know it's gonna be about 50,000 a year annually, additional. But it is, for my office and for the county, in my opinion, the right decision to fill that vacant position with an assistant county attorney, who can best work and support the county.
So I believe all of us have gotten the message that people like having law enforcement in Hubbard County, and they want enforcement to continue. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Nobody wants to pay for it though, Jonathan.
I understand that.
Yeah, I got two messages. One was law
I get
enforcement, the
mixed
other is
messages too, but
taxes are high. So we gotta walk this line. That's why I say this stuff about the capital improvement fund too.
I agree with both of those things, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm glad to see that my fellow commissioners are also thinking about the costs in the future with another full-time employee at a higher wage and stuff like that. Because that's what I've been hearing too from a lot of constituents is our taxes. They moved to Hubbard County thinking the taxes were lower, and they're ending up not being so much lower anymore. But there is, as we all say too, there is the need. And unless people stop breaking the law, if we could get that to happen, then we could use less law enforcement and less attorneys. But if that isn't gonna be the case, what's our alternative?
Well, he's got the money. I got it right here.
Thank you.
wanna get in the
I appreciate
position
that.
not holding people accountable for stuff here. And that just spurns more.
Does. I can't tell you the conversations I've had with victims where it's not because of staffing levels, but just how important it is for those victims of a burglary or an assault, a theft type case. How important it is to have a law enforcement and enforcement county attorney's office going to the court and fighting on their behalf. It's something that's incredibly important, and it's undervalued a lot of times because it doesn't matter until it matters to you. But when it does matter, it's a very, very important thing. And I live my employment life, my professional life, in that realm. Everything matters a lot because it's maybe the one or two times that we have an individual that's coming into our system. So I full-heartedly can argue all day about how important my office is. I will just say that.
I'll
A
second the
motion.
motion.
Yeah, okay, we got a second now. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
Thank you, commissioners. I think that's all I had, unless you had any questions for me.
Oh, one question for you, briefly, I don't know. Regarding the work we were thinking about doing on drug paraphernalia ordinance, has
Yeah,
the state,
sure.
now that they've passed this, pretty much thrown that out the door?
To some extent, yes, but not to the point that it would make it pointless. I would say it's something that continues to need to be worked on. Ultimately, when August 1 comes and the full law comes into effect, which is very wide-reaching, as I'm sure all of you know, and covers a lot of different areas, as it relates to the paraphernalia ordinance, that ordinance will end up looking different based off of new law. But there are still some local controls that can come in to effect, and definitely some options that you as the electeds would want to consider.
Sounds like what we were hovering over was,
Yeah.
you know, when we were hovering over licensing and,
Right.
and where they were located, that they've stripped that control from locally, based on what I've heard on the bill so far, that
Sure.
they've already defined
The
distance from schools, and that they're doing all the state's gonna do all the licensing and stuff, so then
Yeah.
what's left locally?
Not a lot. They didn't give the local governments very much control, but there is still, or at least very much say in what was happening. But there is still a few things as it relates to place, time, sale. But you're correct. This state is really gonna, based off of this new agency that they've created, regulate most of it through the licensing and where a business can get licensed. But in looking at the new law, I do believe the county will have a couple of options if they want to restrict a little bit more, or if they don't, if you don't. And that's true for the city as well, the cities in the area, they'll have that option as well.
So I'd be interested in
Can we,
what you would recommend it.
Yeah, that's something that we should definitely keep looking at.
can we put that on June 20th too?
Yeah, please.
Just to identify what options are available to pursue?
So Jonathan,
Yeah.
I didn't read the actual bill that passed, I just read the generalization, but did they keep into play that if, I believe that the town was under 5,000, we could restrict to one business? Did they keep that in there?
I don't believe they did, but I'll have to double check that. Off the top of my head, I don't believe that's still in there.
11 or 12,000, but every city can have, in our case, every city could have one,
Yes.
Yeah.
but only one.
Yeah, because I think it was limited one for every 12,500.
Was it 12,000? Okay.
I'll take a look. We'll meet on the 20th on that. Thanks. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Okay, Administrator.
I think, well, I gave the one update relative to Deep Lake Park and the fund, money that's set aside for that and the timeline of using that. We'll bring that up for further discussion, but I just wanted to put a bug in your ear that came up this last week when we asked Stuart Crosby relative to spending money ahead of the grant and whether it'd still be considered match. The second item is a report I shared with you earlier that we have not gotten an offer on the purchase of the Heritage Nursing Center, but we did get 3 responses to the RFP for management services. Those will be opened this afternoon by the Heritage Living Center Executive Committee, and we'll keep you all up to date on as that process unfolds. Our current situation with Ecumen is that they're provided the notice not to renew. Their contract runs through the end of September, so our goal is to have somebody else in the management in place to make a smooth transition. Their goal, Ecumen's commitment, is to make that transition as smooth as possible. From what I can tell, the 3 responses we got are from people who are doing this work in our region in the state of Minnesota who would be qualified to do that. So we should be in a situation to be able to choose the best and not have to choose somebody. So that'll happen this afternoon. The County Board of Appeal and Equalization is scheduled for next week. The numbers I got from the assessor's office last night is that we have 60 appellants on schedule for next week. This is significantly down from last year, although it's still a high number. I'm guessing that we're gonna need more than one night to get through this. And so I'm taking the option of how do you wanna proceed? Do you wanna plan a continuation now so we can notice that and let people know? Do we start at Monday at 5 o'clock and work until we get as far as we can? Do we continue? And Maria suggested that we would add a section to, that we could add a section to the work session next week and continue that and just do the administrative abatement portions, the abatement requests that are gonna be coming from the assessor's office and not being represented by individuals. We could do that then, so that we don't have to do those in the evening. But I'm guessing that we should probably plan on a second evening. Do we just continue to Tuesday at 5 o'clock like we did last year? I don't think we need to plan for Thursday and Friday. Wednesday.
Just
Do you
assume,
wanna
just
start
keep
at 5?
going and get it done with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had down 6, you wanna start at 5? I'm going to start at 5.
I have to look at the notices.
The notices, tax notices say 5 o'clock.
Do
Tax
they say
notices
five?
say-
I was gonna
Tax
question
notices
that.
say 5 o'clock. The County Board of Appeal has to extend beyond at least 6 o'clock. So on those years, you might remember them, when we had nobody showing up or very few people showing up, I think my first year here, we had 3 people here, and we had to wait until 6 o'clock before we could leave, right? So we're hoping for those days again. But at that point, what I will likely recommend is that we have a continuation to Tuesday, but that we add a section at the end of the work session. And I'll work this out with Maria and let you know for sure, to do the administrative portions, or we could catch up with those later. I'll have to find out what the deadline is to do those. If we can leave those to the end of the 20th and do that day too, that might work, but.
So 5 o'clock on Tuesday, on
So
Monday.
5 o'clock on Monday and 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and then we'll figure out when to work in the office work of that. But she's got a number of those, which is probably gonna take a couple of hours, and it'd be better to add those to an existing meeting than schedule another night.
So it appears I found some sort of semi-solution to the
Yes.
concerns.
Yep, they did. They're gonna be able to, so anybody that appealed at the local board of appeal, they went in, they looked at administratively, they sent out 400 letters last week to let people know, here's what we found, here's the adjustments we're proposing, and they're getting a lot of phone calls saying, we agree with that, take us off the list. So the list may shorten up. And then there's also, you know how the process, if somebody doesn't go to local board, they can't come straight to county board unless they're in an open book. All the rules of if-then statements about who can come and who can't come and what their other appeal process is, still all have to be followed. So things are resolving to a great degree. And I do still believe that the assessor's office is gonna make a recommendation to the county board to make some specific adjustments in certain districts. So, and again, every time we make an adjustment, we have to be aware of that 1% variance that we can deal with, so. 1% is $54 million. And it's crazy that doesn't go as far as you think it would in value, so. Those are my updates. I'll work with the assessor's office, make those changes, get the notices out, and then update you all on the final schedule.
All right, well, next will be environmental services. And maybe let Eric know that we're ready. But, he's not here yet.
Well, he's not here yet. Do we need him here for you to have a consensus and talk about the general?
Probably not. I would have wanted his input on it. Could you pull up property number, parcel ID,
Yeah.
so the others can have a look at it? 25.13.01110.
Yeah. You're gonna have to read that again when I get this out.
25.
Yep, wait a minute, not there. Computer's really slow. Come on. 25.
13.
Yep.
0110.
What was that?
0110. Or it could be 3 ones.
Yeah, you're missing a digit in
Yeah,
there.
okay, 0310.
Okay.
You got it? Okay, I got a call from the owner of this property. And that used to be the former Fairview Golf Course.
Oh, here
and-
comes Eric.
Ah, okay, good. And he has a potential either leaser or even a buyer who would like to put a vet clinic in that building that used to be the golf pro shop. And, however, it doesn't meet the requirements of the ordinance as it is, because it's 550 feet away from Moran Lake, that you can see there. Now, this property is not a lake property, so but there's still 550 feet of buffer. I realize we don't want to respond in ordinance changes just for a specific property, but I'm just wondering if that requirement right there is, the ordinance says it's gotta be 1,000 feet away from the lake, and this is 550. I'm just wondering if that was maybe a little too strict. Perhaps we can send this to the planning commission for them to review it and see what their thoughts are. And of course, we'd like to hear what Eric has to say too.
Sure. The professional services business category was added to the ordinance in 2006. There isn't a whole lot of documentation back then as far as minutes that would capture the why behind why it was done the way it was, as far as why conditional uses were required on GD and RD lakes and it was non-permitted on the other classifications. My best guess would be that it was related to how those lake classifications are meant to be used and kind of how they want them to look long-term. So a natural environment lake is generally a smaller lake, didn't have a whole lot of development on it at the time that the rules were put together initially, and that's kind of how they want to keep it, having a more natural feel. So understandably, having commercial businesses potentially around the lake that would bring in business-related traffic wouldn't be something that would be in keeping with that type of feel on the lake. So that's my best guess as to why it is the way it is. We certainly run into, as we do with this particular situation, instances where, because of how our lakes fit in relative to the surrounding landscape, that there's situations where that doesn't always make sense. So here I would say if the board wanted to have this matter looked at, my recommendation would be that you'd consider restricting professional services to not being able to be placed in tier 1 on natural environment lakes, which would be the first 400 feet. And then that kind of safeguards that feel on the lake itself that the state shoreland rules in our ordinance are trying to maintain.
So the purpose today is to ask Eric to take this back to the planning commission to review alternatives.
Well, yeah,
options.
consensus of the board, if we want to send it to the planning commission, have them spend the time doing it in the first place. So maybe any other,
It seems reasonable,
okay?
you know, it's not on the lake too, is one of the things that you pointed out.
Yeah.
And the ordinance is close to 20 years old, and so it doesn't hurt to look at it.
Okay. So do we have a consensus to send this to the planning commission?
Yeah, I'm not opposed for them reviewing it again, but, you know, there seems to be it's quite a big piece of property. I mean, would it be easier just to subdivide the property and relocate it somewhere else that fits outside the 1,000 feet? You know, those are questions, because once you open the if they recommended opening the ordinance and you changed it, you know, that's different forever.
I'm assuming they're gonna use an existing building?
Existing building, yes.
Yeah, I believe the former clubhouse is the structure that's being considered. And this practice, vet practice, had been originally started on one of the lake properties under the ordinance's home extended business provisions that allowed it. And at that time, we visited with the vet and let him know that, you know, with his hope to be able to expand and grow the business, what the ordinance says, and that his best bet would be to find property that would be outside of shoreland for an eventual permanent location. And so this has been the next iteration of what we've heard from him as far as places that he's been looking at to
Is this the kind of,
allow that expansion to occur.
is this the kind of Kevin's business?
I believe so. Yep.
Okay, so show me where the water is, will you?
To the north.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, I'm don't want to have to respond changing the ordinance just to suit a particular piece of property, but at the same time, when something like this comes up, we have a look at it, and say, well, maybe this wasn't the right way to have the ordinance, maybe we need to change it a little bit.
Well, not to single out changing anything for just one business, but a large animal vet is next to impossible to even find in the area. And so this person that purchased a business and was willing to move into this area was desperately needed. And so if we can accommodate in a reasonable manner, it would be helpful.
So he couldn't just get a variance?
It's a non-permitted use. It's interesting, though, that a stable, a horse barn, and barn for livestock is a conditional use in the same district, or in the same water classification, and that's really the argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, legally, you may not apply for a variance to allow a use that's prohibited in the ordinance. The only exception to variances being allowed for uses would be in the case of a legal non-conforming use. And that's where the Supreme Court for Minnesota drew a distinction in a case where they pretty much reinterpreted how the statute had historically been viewed.
Rather than changing the setback, could you consider the option of resetting professional services business from not allowed to conditional in the same, I mean, you could change that toggle in there too, and then you would go through the conditional use process, and he'll still have an opportunity to review any of these situations for impact. It's another way to look at it.
Yeah, no, that was my suggestion, would be that you could make it conditional use on natural environment lakes, and then if you were concerned about it being too close to the lake, as we've done with some other commercial uses, you could specify that they have to be a certain distance back from the water, similar to what those egg structures are required to meet.
Yep. So referral to
So
planning
I'm
commission.
not opposed to sending it to them for review, I just really wonder if it's the path of least resistance, that's all.
I do
Getting to
like
the
the
end.
idea of the tiers, because there's definite criteria for the tiers across the board.
Yeah, and if time is a concern, the soonest that it would be able to be on the planning commission agenda would be their July meeting at the end of July, so.
And then then it would have to come here in August.
It'll take a while.
Yeah,
It would take
I
longer.
told the owner, property owner, that, it's gonna be a while, at least 2 months, maybe even more. And then on top of that, he's gotta go through the conditional use process, so that'll add a couple months to it. Yeah, he's aware of the time,
Okay,
and I'll remind him again after this meeting. But, okay, is that consensus, to send it to the planning commission? Okay?
will do. We'll put it on the July
Quiet
agenda.
Here so far, so,
No,
well, after January.
we like quiet. We don't like exciting.
Well, you got a reason to go to the planning commission.
I do.
All right. Okay, do you got any updates while you're here, or?
I shared a few with Commissioner Dave earlier today that were relative to his district, but
Few violations in my district, but
There are violations?
there's always several. It's-
Okay.
Most of the lakes are in that, a lot of them are in that district,
Yeah,
so I get letters on a regular basis.
otherwise, nothing major to share.
Okay, well, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to committee reports. Who wants to go first?
I don't have a lot, so just a quick update on Heritage. They, continuing to show a lot of interest. They had an open house a little while back. It was well attended. I went myself. There were 4 deposits put on the manor the other day, 1 move out, so that's slowly starting to pick up some steam. And this is normally a quiet time for that, but, yeah, we seem to be gaining ground. That may be a product of competition's full. And now, and then we did remodel, 2 of the remodels should be done, or at least one of them, and so we're trying to do 2 in, the single apartments that are open right now. And then we'll be staging and marketing that, the new changes, and we'll keep adding one as we finish one. So eventually, we'll get through them all over a period of time, but, yeah, other than that, other than what Jeff mentioned this afternoon, opening the RFPs, and looks like, we're gonna just move forward and get a management company and keep being heavily involved in managing it and getting it turned around.
Good.
It's nice to see there was 3 proposals
Yeah.
sent back.
That was really encouraging.
Yeah. One would have been, we were stuck kind of a thing.
Yeah, nice to have a choice, choose the best.
Yeah, and after going through a little bit of the process myself, touring the multiple facilities in town, definitely have some ideas on budgeting, and when we set our budget for next year on what we need to do to be, you know, more competitive and what we can freshen up to help with that, so.
So the executive committee makes a decision on this? Is that what it is?
They will open them up, make a recommendation, the Heritage Board will look at it and then make a recommendation to this board.
Okay.
And this board will have final approval.
Okay.
My hubby is going through the same process the county has started since this board got together, and that is looking at classification. We're just in the beginning stages. For Prime West, we had an extra long meeting on Tuesday. We're looking at the new vision and mission statement, and then yesterday I had a equity council meeting for Prime West, and we're also doing the same thing. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, with Kitgami Library, we had a couple meetings on that. One of them was one that had to call together rather quickly to make a decision. Just like the county, we had to add Juneteenth to this year's holiday list, and then we had to make a decision on whether or not to pay them for it, because it originally wasn't scheduled and not even in the budget for that. So yeah, we had that, and then we had another committee meeting for the budget. We're beginning the budget process just like we are in the county here. So Melissa in the future would like to present to this board whenever the time comes, if that'll be okay, whether it's on a work session or something like that. Then we had a growing one watershed, one plan meeting, our organization for the policy committee. There's quite a few participants in that one because it's a pretty large watershed. Hubbard County makes up 24% of that, so yeah, it's a big part of ours. And also that makes 50% of our county. So a large part of our county is included in it. I got elected as the vice chair. I kept my mouth shut when they were trying to do the chair. I chair enough already. I'm the chair of the library. That takes up a lot of time. But anyways, Working Citizen Advisory Committee, two people that I had recommended. However, John was one of them. He will probably be on it, but I had recommended Chris Bolton, and I just recently talked with him, and he said he doesn't have the time. So I will be looking for another agriculture producer, if anyone knows one, because we need somebody with a voice, that's a producer. I was thinking maybe Nate Pike. I was going to ask him. But if anyone has any other names to recommend, that would be helpful. And then the first public meeting that will be held in 2 locations because it is a large watershed. One of them will be here in Park Rapids. I believe the times are from June 28th from 4 to 6:30. I'm not sure of the location yet. It might be right here. I don't know if they reserved it.
I'm not aware.
Okay. And well, that's about all I have.
One thing, Tom, on Gitchigami, it would be nice if the bookmobile could add on its stop once a week or a couple times a month or whatever it might be. Heritage.
Oh, good suggestion. Yeah, because we added a halftime position to that. So there's and part of it was to have not only extend the reach, but improve the quality of each location. So yeah, I'll mention it.
Yeah, because that would be something they'd really look forward to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come along. They
Generation.
have a library in there, but and they rotate books through. It's not a huge library, but if the bookmobile came through every once in a while, that'd be,
Yeah, something to look
Exciting.
forward to.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. That'll probably be a big hit. All right. Thank you.
Let's see, I had an HRDC meeting. There again, like you said, it's time to start the budgets, so we had a little bit of a budget discussion. Had an update on the housing and rehabilitation activities that are going on in the region. And those programs are available here in Hubbard County for low-income people.
Is that the ones where they go to the local banks to access funds?
That's one of them, yeah, and then there's also some where we have funds ourselves.
So would they then go to the HRDC office to apply?
Yep.
Thank you.
Let's see, and then we had an update on the Headwaters Regional Finance Corporation, the different loans that we have out to different companies and that. There's even some here in Hubbard County that have borrowed money from them. I guess one thing I want to touch on, we are having our first annual golf tournament, mini golf that is, and we've invited the mayors of all of the counties in the HRDC region. So I reached out to the 4 mayors in Hubbard County here. The RSVP was to be sent back to Jackie, so I don't know if any of them have taken us up on our offer, but it was going to be on June the 15th. There's a mini golf course north of Bemidji, so it would be taking place there. Then there would be a dinner at the Sanford Event Center, and then at 7 o'clock we would have our HRDC meeting, which those mayors would also be invited to, so they can kind of see what we do and what's available. We want to get the word out there that, you know, who we are, and maybe we can help your city.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. And let's see, then I also had a Northwest Minnesota juvenile. That was, there again, we're starting the budget, and I got on the budget committee for that. So went over the annual audit, which was good. Let's see, had the county, our attorney for Northwest Juvenile spoke about background checks, and now myself and all other board members will be going through background checks, criminal background checks. I haven't participated in any criminal activity, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be fine. Let's see. We do have some, we do have a school at Northwest Juvenile, and we do have half a dozen seniors that are graduating. Some are from the Bemidji area, some from the Cass Lake area. Let's see, and trying to remember where the other area was. In Rosal. So it's nice to see, can have a little recognition for those kids too that are graduating. It's nice to be involved in a program like this where you can see the improvements in the lives that we're doing for those kids and how they want to improve too. So like I said, it's a rewarding committee to be on. And then I also had a Mississippi Headwaters Board meeting. That one was kind of brief. There again, went through starting the budget process. Bowser has expanded. They want us to not only look at the Mississippi River, but also the tributaries, to expand kind of into those areas. They had a nice little presentation. If I could get to it here. See if I can hit any highlights. Yep, so it's the Mississippi Headwaters Protection expands to tributaries, create more linked corridors. They kind of talked about us expanding our sign program to those tributaries, but we've chosen not to because of the costs, and we haven't finished signing and we probably won't ever sign the first 400 miles of the Mississippi, but that's our jurisdiction, and there are areas that could really benefit from people knowing. I go onto the river here, it's X number of hours to the next boat landing, and then what it's gonna be, is it gonna be a state park or county park or a bridge or some access along the road or something like that. Let's see, invitations were sent out for our biannual conference that'll be at Breezy Point this year, but that's not until October 27th. Had Aiken Economic Development come in and talk. I saw a lot of similarities with Hubbard County, and this is one of the things that I talked about. They're trying to promote Aiken County, and I believe their catchphrase was naturally here or something, naturally. Yeah, they're talking about their great outdoors, the miles of ATV trails, the snowmobile trails, the lakes, you know, all the opportunities for recreation. And it's kind of not only expanded to Aiken County, but it's kind of stretched around to their neighboring counties too. So they've kind of gotten together to try to bring tourists and actually people to move to their county too. And we've seen some of that here with Hubbard County with our high-speed internet. And because of the pandemic, people realized that they could work remotely, and why not live in God's country and have high-speed internet to be able to do it. So it was nice. And let's see. And talked about MinFish. I believe it was only 35 million that the legislature provided for the new boat accesses and fish hatchery for this budget cycle, which seems, when they talked about maybe up to $22 million to do one of the fish hatcheries, it doesn't leave a whole lot of money left over for boat accesses. And let's see, I believe that's all I've got.
When Ted was talking, you reminded me of something in discussion at Mojave. And so there's a Native American woman, she's one of the elders from White Earth, and she shared that it was the elders that took care of their grandkids. And now the elders are scared to take care of their grandkids because of the drug problem. And so they're actually looking to, this all came about in the discussion of homelessness. They're actually looking at trying to provide places for the elders to live that would have a locked entrance. So then I went to, when I had the Prime West meeting yesterday, and we looked at the demographics of how the Prime West membership and broken down into categories of who's receiving care. And the American Indian population was lower in receiving care just generally than other groups. And so we talked yesterday about if the kids aren't being parented or grandparented, that's also playing an effect even into wellness visits. So it was really a sad thing to learn about. So the graduations, that's exciting,
Yeah,
because that's progress in the right direction.
yes, definitely. And they get to join the Bemidji school districts and the Roseau school district. They get to go in with the other high school kids and actually, get up there and get a diploma handed to them and everything. So it's
That's wonderful.
really a good process.
Okay. Oh, yeah, meetings to note. The AMC district meeting, June 14th, Bemidji.
I
Right
can
now,
make it.
You're gonna make it?
I won't make it.
Okay, I plan on going.
I'm planning on going too.
We
You
haven't
gonna be there,
gotten any
Ted?
details on that, have we?
No, I was thinking the same thing. I would like to go, but that's the same day I have the Boston committee meeting that morning. And then that afternoon, we're gonna be discussing the C&D landfills with the 9-county group. That's gonna be at 1 o'clock that afternoon, so it's been a couple of years now since I've been to the regional AMC because of Foston's at the same time. So I don't know, I'd still like to, if I hit AMC in the morning, I'd still have to go to Foston in the afternoon, but, so I'm uncommitted right now.
I have 2 other meetings always that same day that they have these District 2 meetings. One in the morning, SWCD, so I'll miss that one. And in the afternoon, it's the drop-in center, LAC. But I told them I'll probably be a half hour late if they don't mind. And that they already said, oh, they'll be fine. Okay, then, we're ready to adjourn. You got a motion?
I just wanted to bring up, I know that there was, got an email on the 25th about further discussion about HRA at today's meeting, or were you not going to?
We don't have further conversation. We don't have an update from the HRA board.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Got a motion to adjourn?
I will move.
Get a second? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I couldn't give you a right